So this was my old 2000 WR400. I owned it for 4 years. I bought it. It was mint. It only had 200 miles on it. I raced it for about 3 years. I'm going to show some footage of a fast woods loop on my new bike and then at Southwick for open practice. Okay, this is my maiden voyage on my new to me 2021 YZ250f. Got it out here in the woods. I bought it the end of December, and it's been sitting in my basement while I worked on it for about 3 months. So I think it's March 20th now, so we're out to do a little trail riding, test it out. I'm coming from a 2000 WR400f, so it's quite a big jump, 21 years difference in setup and technology. So I've already noticed just getting out here how peppy it is, I think, with the fuel injection compared to the old bike. I bought it used. It had 10 hours on it, so it's pretty new. Put some graphics on it, glide plate and hand guards, and then just went through all the linkage and greased everything up, so she's ready to go. Just getting ready for open practice at Southwick next week. So there are 6 positive aspects of this bike so far for me, and the first one being suspension. The suspension is fantastic over the WR400. WR was set up very soft. It was great in the woods, but once you got it out on the track, you really noticed its shortcomings. But with this bike, it's set up for pure motocross. It's nice and stiff. I'm still playing around with adjusting the sag correctly to dial it in as best I can, as well as the fork height. I raised the fork height slightly over the winter, but I may get a bit more aggressive with that. I haven't adjusted any of the clickers yet on the suspension, but I feel it at certain times it may be a little bit too stiff in some of the chop or the whoops, so I may play around with just softening things up a little bit on that. But it's fantastic when you get into rough stuff or on jumps. It's so much more plush and ready for motocross. The second positive would be the engine. The engine is incredibly strong. I was really surprised at how well this 250 just pulls. I was a little nervous about dropping down to a 250 because I've had most of my experiences with a 250 two-stroke and a 450 four-strokes. So going to the smaller bike, I had a little concerns, but I'll tell you, after riding this thing, I'm just thoroughly impressed at how strong this thing is, really from the bottom all the way to the top. And going from a carbureted bike on the WR to the EFI, it's just incredible. The throttle response with the EFI is just impressive. Most of the time, all you have to do is just crack the throttle, and you're going to get instant power. Sometimes if it's really, if you happen to be bogging, then maybe you need to feather the clutch a little bit to get that pull that you need. I'm just thoroughly impressed with this engine. I'm super happy with the bike overall. The third positive would be the lightweight. That was one of the reasons why I went down to the 250 was I wanted to get something that was as light as possible. Going with the kind of first generation four-stroke in the WR, that bike was very heavy. This one's so much lighter. So, I'm 52 now. I race the super senior class. So with a lighter bike, hopefully that will increase my stamina and longevity for the endurance needed. If on the last lap I can, maintain my speed, maintain my position, possibly even, gain a position or two, then that'll be huge. Because I'm not getting any faster at my age. Fourth positive would be the ergonomics. Just the layout of the bike, the fit and feel of it is really nice. I think having the wider pegs is fantastic too. That was a big improvement. I'm 6'3", so I'm a tall guy, and I need to add bar risers. So I've got 22 millimeter bar risers on it, which is about 3/4 of an inch taller. So that just helps me when I'm in the woods section. I don't have to kind of lean over as much. It helps with my lower back. The cornering ability on the bike seems to be great. Still trying to dial it in to get it to the best that it possibly can be. It's slightly better than the WR400, I've noticed. And the seat height is a little bit of an issue, for me, just because I'm so tall. My knees stand just above the seat, so I can't really grip all that well with my knees. I have to pretty much grip the bike with my, kind of like ankles and the inside of my shins with boots up against the frame to kind of hold the bike in place. Maybe a taller seat would help. The fifth positive would be the brakes. The brakes are fantastic. Maybe it's just because it's a new bike and the discs are clean and the brake pads are fresh, but definitely a huge improvement over the WR, especially the rear brake. The rear brake, I noticed, it really grabs, so you just have to be careful not to stall it if you really want to get on the rear brakes heavy. The sixth positive would be the maps, the ability to change maps for the engine. It's such a cool feature to have the tuner app on your phone and to play around with different map settings. It's amazing how much you can change the engine characteristics just by adjusting the fuel injection and the ignition timing. I started off playing around with the Travis Preston map and the Kiefer Free Feeling map. I also played around with some of the Torquey maps, the OEM linear torque and the Torquey map that I found online. And being a guy who liked to use a lot of the torque from an engine in my past bikes, I found that I didn't like those as much, and the harder hitting maps seem to just work better. They just seem to be stronger throughout the entire spread of the engine. So I've come down to really just moving between the Travis Preston map and the OEM hard-hitting map. I think the OEM hard-hitting map is the best one for me. It just seems to be the most consistent throughout, and I love the pull of that map. And as far as negatives, there are two negatives for me. One being the loud exhaust. This stock exhaust is freaking loud, crazy loud. It's not so much a problem when you're riding or you have your helmet on, but if you're trying to be respectful for anyone that lives nearby, this bike is just crazy loud. WR had a restriction on the exhaust outlet on the bike, so it was nice and stealthy. So if you're maybe riding on private property or state property, municipal property, utility property where you don't really want to get detected, you got to worry about it with this bike because it's so loud. Second negative is probably the starting issues. The way it's set up from the factory, it's a little tricky to get this thing to start. I was having to use the throttle a little bit in order to get it to fire up when the engine was hot. I read a few things on the internet, and most people recommend just adjusting the idle screw to increase the RPMs, the idling RPMs. That seemed to have done the trick. It idles a little bit high, but when the engine is hot and you stall it and you need the bike to fire right up, it's made a huge improvement. I've actually been able to start it while it's in gear when the engine's hot. So as the engine gets hotter, it will increase the RPMs of the idle. So far, it's been a fantastic bike. I'm super happy with it.